Salutations, my sassy sycophants. Sugar Pants here, sliding on up to your door with another god-awful gift from the graveyard. 1987's Doom Asylum. A spectacularly sloppy serving about a disfigured lawyer assassinating some addle-brained adults. It's billed as a comedy horror, but I'm not exactly sure it lives up to either description. Let's get to that sleaze docket and find out what we're in for this time around. We have 10 dead bodies, 9 cups blood, 1 cup vomit, 2 naked breasts, 1 hand-ectomy, partially skinned face, knife to the chest, clamp to the skull, surgical saw to the face, power drill to the skull, syringe to the neck, face dunked in acid, 1 punched nutsack, 1 stethoscope strangulation, 3 scissored off toes, 1 cube compacted human, black guy dies first cliche, overly cavalier pathologist cliche, water-filled condom assault, and nearly 7 minutes of other movies padding the runtime. Our movie starts off by playing House of the Rising Sun, but it's not the awesome original version performed by the Animals. I can't even tell you who sings this one, because they didn't put it in the song credits. So I whipped out my phone and Shazammed its ass. And this is what I got! Which is pretty bad. I mean, I shop at a lot of Asian grocery stores, and I love seeing if Shazam can identify the clearly Asian music they play over the PA system. I always get a result. But this song? Apparently it only exists in the movie. Thankfully, because it's a stinker and we gotta hear it more than once. Anyway, back to the movie, which is literally just beginning. Mitch, a jackass lawyer, is guzzling down the hooch while driving his girl Judy to Palm Beach. Apparently, Judy just got a $5 million settlement and the two are celebrating. Judy says she'll never have to do another manicure again and will also ship her brat off to boarding school. The two start necking during a windy section of the road and end up in a greasy heap in the grass. Mitch crawls to Judy and takes her hand, which is no longer connected to the rest of her. Soon the sirens are blaring and Judy sobs her goodbyes. Cut to the pathologist's office where Mitch's autopsy is scheduled. Holy shit, he died too? And we get the tired, no longer funny trope where the old doc isn't fazed by anything anymore, but the new doc is still squeamish. Ugh. The old doc even calls the other one kid, even though he's like 43 or whatever. The old doc starts carving off Mitch's face, and the new guy notices Mitch's hand twitching. The old doc swears it's just rigor mortis, but then Mitch sits up and freaks out over what has just happened to him. He cries out for Judy, but they tell her she didn't make it. Mitch then stabs the two doctors, and we roll the opening credits. We are then subjected to an entire album of haunted house sound effects. Screams, cat yowls, demonic screeches, all while we get stock footage of an abandoned asylum. 6 minutes in and we're already repeating the title song, and it's just as shitty as it was the first time. Only now it's 10 years later, and we join up with our completely unlikable cast of dipshit young adults heading up for a fun weekend at the abandoned asylum. Darnell and Dennis are trying to give Jane the creeps, but they probably do that just sitting next to her. And I gotta give props to the costume department for giving us Gavin 3 years before the kids in the hall did. Jane chastises the others for believing the stories of the evil coroner who kills anyone who trespasses at the asylum. Mike meekly asks everyone to calm down, and glum-looking Kiki says they're driving past where her mother died. Mike, being our movie's spineless simp, keeps asking if Kiki is okay, and if she wants him to stop, he will, but if she doesn't, then that's okay too. Mike pulls over and he and Kiki step away from the others for a moment, and that's when Kiki finds a mirror in the grass and says that it's her mother's. And if I roll my eyes any harder at this fucking movie, they might actually detach from the optic nerve. The three assholes in the car scream at them to get a move on. That's when Mike drops this fucking line.
I'm not your mother, and I never could be. but I can try.
Can I call you Mom?
Sure.
They pull up to the asylum and it's suddenly Pee-wee's Playhouse. But they're not alone. A god-awful trio is making some god-awful sounds that Kiki immediately identifies as music. Darnell recognizes them as Tina and the Tots and goes to take care of them by unplugging their equipment. Tina and Godiva are pissed others have crashed their party, but Rapunzel makes goo-goo eyes at Darnell. We then get the slow motion running to each other's arms, and I'm already pretty fucking sick of this mess. And we're only 13 minutes in. Tina and Darnell trade some elementary school level barbs, and we cut to a first-person POV with raspy breathing. The girls then peel off their clothes like they're at the beach, and the band goes up to the roof to chuck water-filled condoms at the others. We get more Rapunzel daydreams. Dennis rattles off the stats from his baseball cards, and Kiki calls Mike Mom before asking for a kiss. Nearby, the raspy voice opens a bag and peers at a newspaper clipping, and the picnic is bombarded by the condoms. We then get the movie's only nudity as Tina flashes her tatas. Mike picks up one of the broken condoms and suggests that he and Kiki get busy, and she tells him,
But Mom, that's incest!
is she fucking stupid or something? I mean, she doesn't really believe Mike is her mom, right? Darnell heads off to meet up with Rapunzel, and we have to listen to him work on his pickup lines the entire way in. Thankfully, our slasher clamps his head to shut him the fuck up. Now go take care of everyone else and let's call it before we hit the 30-minute mark. Tina and Rapunzel are playing chess. Funny. I pegged them as more of a make action figures out of their own shit kind of group. Down in the asylum, Mitch is watching old black and white movies, and we have to linger on this garbage filler for way too fucking long. Godiva splits off to do some graffiti and interrupts our killer while washing up. She hears a toilet flush and checks all the stalls. That's when Mitch busts out and shoves Godiva's face into a conveniently placed sink full of acid. Back at the picnic, Dennis is drying his cards while everyone else wonders what Darnell is up to. Mike makes the decision to go after him, but then doesn't. But then does. But then doesn't. Jesus fucking Christ. Meanwhile, Mitch is wandering the asylum catacombs and finds his bedroom before remembering his past life with Judy. One of Dennis's cards flies away in the breeze.
It's Wade Boggs! He's blown away!
Perhaps we're taking this a little bit too seriously?
Absolutely we're not, okay? The man is a legend. That's why we're doing this, all right? To honor his memory. Rest in peace, Wade. Again, he is still alive.
He chases after it straight to the asylum and right into a power drill sporting Mitch who puts the insufferable dweeb out of our misery. Seriously, I don't think I've ever rooted so hard for the killer in a slasher movie. But that's just because he's the de facto least hated member of the entire cast. We then cut to Mitch lighting candles around the altar where he's keeping Judy's severed hand before rubbing it all over his face. Mike finally makes it to the rooftop and demands to know where Darnell is, but Tina and the Tots don't know what he's talking about. She doesn't care for his accusations and attacks, but instead of something that might be interesting, we once again cut back to black and white filler. No, that's okay, movie. Don't show us some actual content. Change the channel on us and show us something someone else already did. Eventually, we go back to the fight, which is just as action-packed and believable as a Steven Seagal demonstration. Mike ends up on the roof ledge, and Tina delivers a haymaker to the balls, and then tosses his ass over the edge. And cut back to more black and white movie instead of sticking with the one we thought we were watching. Rapunzel is still pining after Darnell and takes off to find him. Meanwhile, Jane and Kiki are loafing around, ignoring Mike's screams. Finally, they notice him hanging over the side and don't even care enough to get up off their asses. Eventually, they begin to meander towards the asylum, and Kiki is still calling him Mom. Slowly, they tromp through the hallways, taking their sweet time getting to the guy who's literally hanging by his fingers off the top of the fucking building. While looking for Darnell, Rapunzel finds Godiva's severed head and screams. Mistaking it for Kiki, Mike finds the strength to suddenly shoot up over the ledge and run to help, complete with trumpet fanfare. Distracted by the gore, Rapunzel doesn't notice Mitch approach from behind, and he strangles her to death with his stethoscope. Mike crashes into Kiki and Jane just as Tina goes looking for her bandmates. That's when we start recreating a Scooby-Doo episode. Jane is convinced everyone else is just trying to scare them and goes to look for them, but Mike warns her that in a horror movie, anytime a person splits from the group, they always end up dead. You know what, movie? You aren't nearly entertaining enough to be pulling this meta shit like you are, okay? I mean, kudos for beating Scream to it by almost a decade, but there's a reason no one quotes Mike like they do Randy. Jane runs into Tina and calls her out for being responsible for the fake scares before stepping away on her own yet again. Only this time, she immediately meets up with Mitch. He approaches her with a bone saw, and she decides to psychology her way through the situation. Hey, book smarts! All your fancy liberal arts college bullshit ain't gonna work here. And the bitch actually sits down and lets Mitch approach as slowly as fucking possible. She even has time for a full 11 full seconds of screaming before the blade is pushed through her smug fucking face. God, thank you, Mitch. Tina steps inside to see what all the racket is about, but Mike calls out to her and chases Mitch away. Mike assumes Tina is responsible for Jane's death, but she swears it's a psycho. But before Mike can do something, or nothing, or something, Kiki screams again, and off he runs again. Kiki's screaming over Darnell's corpse in the bathtub, and Mike blames Tina for his death, too. Kiki throttles Mike for a while, demanding to know what happened to Jane, but then we cut to some more vintage cinema filler. Tina's wandering by herself at a pace that in no way represents someone who knows damn well there's a killer taking people down. She finally makes it to the bathroom where her bandmates' remains are being stored and pukes all over the floor. Mike and Kiki are praying at the asylum's altar while Mitch watches from a hallway. He steps into a nearby room and fills a syringe with anesthetic. But he's not the only one preparing. Tina finds a loose metal pipe and rips it from the wall. We then get a long sequence of scared assholes slowly walking through the hallways and nothing happening. Finally, Mitch gets tired of these slow-ass fuckers and gives Mike a neck full of knockout juice. Why he didn't just kill the wimp, I don't know. He then ties up Kiki and retreats back to the basement for some more old movies. He actually wastes so much time that Mike is starting to come around by time he returns. He carries Mike to the autopsy room and straps him to the table. He rips off Mike's shoes and takes a pair of antique tin snips to 3 of his toes before Tina interrupts. Mitch grabs an axe from the wall and the two have a duel of the fates. Tina gets the upper hand and wails on Mitch for a while before untying Kiki. Unfortunately, she accidentally activates some machinery and goes for a ride. Dumb as a brick, Kiki can't figure out the off switch in time, and Tina gets boxed. For some reason. I mean, this is an asylum. We're in the medical wing where they do autopsies. Is there any believable reason for them to have a machine that makes cubes? Kiki takes off and Mitch strolls after her, but does an amazing job of keeping up. Mitch starts calling out Judy's name, obviously mistaking Kiki for her mom.
I killed them all for you. Aren't you grateful?
He catches up to her, and she tries to convince him she's not Judy, but he won't listen to her or believe her. He goes in for a fondle, and Kiki knees him in the balls. Eventually, she makes it back to the picnic area where Mitch collapses and begins to sob. Kiki angrily reminds Mitch that he and her mom were going to ship her off to boarding school while they ran off to Palm Springs. She grabs her mom's mirror and stabs him in the eye. Mitch falls over, presumably dead, and Kiki just walks away. And the sound effects guy just kind of goes nuts with the bird calls here. The movie plays one last clip of old movie, and we roll the credits. Oh no, don't worry about Mike or anything. He's just slowly bleeding out on a slab while you wander off down the street. I guess she forgot about the perfectly functional car parked out front or whatever. Christ. Jesus, folks, this one was painful to sit through. It says it's a horror comedy, but I'm not certain of the latter. Any joke written into this mess was lame, tired, and cringy. And the acting was just god-awful. At the very least, when it went for gore, it kind of delivered, so there is that. I mean, sure, we had a couple of weak kills, but there were some pretty decent ones too. Not enough to save this mess, but I will give points where points are earned. Doom Asylum was co-written and directed by Richard Friedman. Some of his other directorial credits include 4 episodes of Tales from the Dark Side, 2 episodes of Friday the 13th, the series, Phantom of the Mall, and 4 episodes of Baywatch Nights. Patty Mullen starred as the mommy-daughter dual role of Judy and Kiki in her acting debut, but we previously spoke about her in my review of Frankenhooker. In a nice little shock, we also get to see Kristen Davis in her acting debut. Naturally, everyone knows her as Charlotte from Sex and the City. Why does everyone know her as Charlotte from Sex and the City? Because you weren't allowed to not know what the fuck Sex and the City was if you lived in the 90s. Whole tribes of indigenous Amazons who haven't had any contact with any outsiders know about Sex and the City. And I suppose she's done other stuff too. Darnell was played by Harrison White, who's actually had a long list of acting gigs, including Seven, L.A. Noire, The Muppets, 2 episodes of Modern Family, 1 episode of The Mick, 1 episode of Fresh Off the Boat, and Space Jam: A New Legacy. And our antagonist was played by Michael Rogan, who only had a handful of acting roles, but one of them included Man with 27 Noses from Basket Case 2. Ugh, that one was so bad it's going to take me a bit of time to shake it off. But next time I'll try to bring you all something with at least a chance of being halfway watchable. Maybe there'll be some light at the end of the tunnel, kiddies. So until I greet you for the next putrid present, this is your janky jokester Sugar Pants. See you in your dreams.
And I'd just like to add, God, that if we make it through this, I'll give you anything you want. Money, sex, a charge card of Bloomies.
Amen.